So, Josh, you have to look at people who are trying to get in, okay? Because a lot of people are getting in.
Is the link limited to 50 people? Because that might be where they're not getting in.
I think it's up to 100.
They also thought so.
Yes, most of them are up to
Excuse me,
100,
please.
unless it's professional.
Right.
Okay, fine. So we've got 50 people here, and we've got a sort of agenda. Trying to keep you lot under control is quite a struggle, but we have an agenda, and we're going to try and keep to it. So first of all, hi everybody, and Shabbat Tov. Many thanks. No. Can you all go on mute except for me, please?
Yeah.
Josh, organise it, will you?
Yes, sir.
Got this chatting family. Mira, try and go on mute. I know it's difficult for you. I know for you it's a great difficulty, I know. Well done. Okay, so hi everybody, Shabbat Tov. Many thanks to Auntie Joan for coming up with this idea and making sure that it would not remain as an idea, but would really happen. Wonderful to see you here, Auntie Joan. We send our love and refuah shalema to Mook in Florida, and we're absolutely thrilled that we can see him here on this screen. So hi to Mook, and we're mamash very, very excited to see you, and we wish you lots of love and refuah shalema.
Amen.
Auntie Billy is here with us, and we're delighted to see you. Where's Auntie Billy? Somewhere. Say hello. And we're delighted to see you, bright and unchanged as ever. So this evening is a celebration of Yortzites, of several family members we remember during this month of Kislev. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs points out that there's no word for history in Hebrew. The word is historia, there's no other word at all. But throughout Tanakh, the word for history is zichronot. Zichronot is memories, not history. History is a collection of facts. Memories are personal. So today, we share our zichronot, not our history, but our memories and not the facts. The zichronot make us into unique Jewish people and ties our family together as we are tonight. There are some other important English words not translatable into Hebrew. One is empathy, translated as empathia, and another is discretion, translated as diskretia, or how you pronounce it. Those two words never translated into Ivrit. Perhaps the founding fathers decided that there was no point in trying to translate words into Ivrit that would never be used in modern Israel. As a family, we are notable for our empathy, but delightfully lacking in our discretion. It's in the DNA. So wonderful to see you all, and I'm passing over to Joan.
Thank you, Timmy, and thank you for all the work that you have had this last 2 weeks of getting us all together. I'm very excited about it. In fact, really, I was very excited all day. אני רוצה קודם כל לדבר בעברית שלנו כאן בארץ, שלא יודעים כל כך אנגלית. אז קודם כל, ברוכים הבאים לכולכם.
You want to chat? Oh, that's, you want to raise your hand and get connected? I don't know. What do you want to do? Don't get close. I'm too close to you.
How do I,
I'm too close to you.
how do I, I'm not on mute.
You're not on mute. Say
Is
something.
it okay?
You don't have your badge, right?
Timmy?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Joe. Now no one will bother you.
Okay. I promised Timmy that we would make it short, that I would make it short, and I'm trying to keep it within the 4-minute limit. So let me just say hello to my grandchildren and great-grandchildren here in Israel. אז שלום לכולכם, ואם ישנם שלא יודעים אנגלית, בבקשה, אבא ואמא תתרגמו. בסדר? יש לי מעט מאוד לומר, אבל כל מה שאני אומרת זה חשוב. אז קודם כל, ברוכים הבאים לכולכם, ואני עוברת לאנגלית, כי אני חושבת היום הרוב דוברי אנגלית. ידעו עברית, אני משוכנעת, הדורות הבאים. אוקיי, אז אנחנו, this evening, hello everybody, it's wonderful seeing you. What should I say? It is very moving. And we are now, first of all, we have the outside tonight for Naftali, Yudalid. And so this is really pertinent for him.
Auntie Joan Mechila, Auntie Joan, sorry, do you have two computers on by any chance?
Do I have what?
Is there more than one computer on next to you? Because you're...
Yeah, there are two computers, yes.
So can you mute one of them or turn one of them off?
Can you?
Because there's an echo.
I was mute.
לא, אז את צריכה לכבות שלא לשמוע, שלא תוכלי תכבי את הרמקול אצלך גם.
Okay. The unmute, not unmute.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, as אנחנו, today we really, thanks to Timmy, we are looking part of the family who have got the outside. That is first my mother, and then there's Julius who has already had his outside. Where's Fran? Hello, Fran. We've had the outside for Julius, who I love very, very much. And then there is Jack, of course, and he also, I found a lot of letters, and some of them are when they was very young, and I'm saying to Jack, I'm ashamed of your handwriting, Jack. So that's the sort of thing that I wrote about. So that's Naftali, Jack, Julius, and my mother, and Sam Eisenman, my brother-in-law, who is also, I think it's the Shmini, the 8th of Kislev. So I will go right into what I want to say. I found a letter last night that my father spoke during Sheva Brachot of Evelyn in 1937. They were hosted by Sir David and Flora Sassoon in Bruton Street, meaning that they were there, they were hosting. Flora Sassoon was a Talmidat Chacham. She was known for it. And Sir David had a name of his own. And I am going to just tell you exactly what my father wrote at this drasha, and that will say everything for all of us. So what he said to Lady and Sir David Sassoon was, Ateret Skenim B'nei Banim V'Tiferet Banim Avotam, meaning the crown of grandparents are their grandchildren, and the crown of children are their parents. I think that really is the essence of this family. We are proud of our ancestors. They are rooted. The tree is rooted. The ship has an anchor which holds on for, I believe I am right in saying, 5 generations. And the majority have kept truly to the tradition of the Torah, the Gam Derech Eretz, and doing it lovingly and with a lot of authenticity. And that is something that goes from one generation to the other. And I can think of nothing better to say that the crown of grandparents, I wrote it down, are their grandchildren. And we are blessed. We are blessed with wonderful grandchildren, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. What a miracle and what a wonderful thing for our family, when so much happens in the rest of the world and also to the families. So my dear, dear friends, welcome here. Know that we are very proud of you, all of you, of keeping up the tradition with love and with, I would say, authenticity. Your Yahadut is authentic, and that is so wonderful. And keep it up for the next generation. Please tell the children about it, the grandchildren, and let us meet in Smachot. Timmy, 4 minutes, that's it. I can't hear.
Okay. Joan, many, many thanks. Very, very moving words for all of us. We're going to now call on various grandchildren to speak, and we'll do it in the order of the yard sites. So the first one is for Julius Peter, and I believe Dina Kritz is going to talk to us.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, no, wait.
Okay, hi, everyone. It is a zechut to be able to speak about my grandfather, my opa, with all of you, and also such a zechut to be able to observe all these yartzeits with our family. And I wanted to speak just for a few minutes about my grandfather and also what I learned from him. As some of you may know, I'm a teacher. Unfortunately, it's something that my Opa wasn't able to see wasn't able to be with me when I decided to become a teacher or see my teaching, but I was able to feel an element of him in my teaching job just recently. Just, you know, as you know about the American side of the family, we just celebrated Thanksgiving on Thursday. And in order to get our third grade students ready for Thanksgiving, my co-teacher and I, during the days just before and just after my grandfather's yahrzeit, spoke to them about the importance of being makir tov, the midav hakarat tov, of acknowledging the good. And that means really looking for the blessings in your life, but also looking for just what you are fortunate to be able to have, even the basic necessities. And the reason I thought about my grandfather was because it was in the days just before and after, but also as those of you who attended his levaya may recall, it was the week of Parshat Vayetze, and so my mother spoke about Leah naming her son Yehuda out of gratitude to Hashem. She said, "Hapam oded Hashem." Now that I've had 4 children, I acknowledge the good. I acknowledge my gratitude to Hashem. And my mom extended that to speak about the midah of being makir tov, which she learned from my grandfather, and spoke about how his name wasn't simply Yehuda, but he also exemplified the midah of his name. And over the past 14 years, I've tried to practice that midah in general, but especially while observing my opa's yahrzeit, as I try to acknowledge the good that I was able to share with him, instead of focusing on the loss and what I haven't been able to share with him. And so this year, 14 years later, obviously we're sad as we always are, but there's also so much to celebrate throughout the larger Lunzer family and in our own American branch. There have been weddings and births and other celebrations throughout the family, and even just in our own Julius Peter branch, since July, we've been able to celebrate Rachel's wedding and 2 wonderful new grandsons who share the middle name Yehuda. And of course, I'm excited to see how my precious nephew and cousin, so my nephew Adin Yehuda and my cousin Shlomo Yehuda, I'm excited to see how they grow up to share their great grandfather's midot. but they also already exemplify one of his most wonderful attributes, that everyone is just delighted to see them, which we had, whenever we have a family celebration, everyone's so excited to see Shlomo Yehuda, and we get regular WhatsApps from Adin Yehuda, just doing even the smallest things which make us so happy. And it was such a pleasure for me to always see my grandfather and speak to him. He would call a lot in the evening to speak to my mom and speak to us, and speaking politely and respectfully was very important to him. So I would simply pick up the phone and say hello. He felt it was very important to be able to introduce yourself, and so I knew it was him when the voice on the other line would say, "And who is this?" Which was such a delight, and also such a delight to be able to watch others greet him, and to see the way that he greeted his family and friends. That he was also so happy to see everyone. And over the last 14 years, it's been such an honor to hear from relatives and from others, including the rabbis of communities, just how much he meant to them, including just last year when my mom and I spent the Shabbat right before Opa's Yahrzeit in New York, which was mainly to be able to celebrate with Aunt Joan and Ami as we celebrated Alice's bat mitzvah. But also on Shabbat afternoon, we went to the Jewish Center to be just before the Yahrzeit. And the Rav of the shul that we had been in earlier that day was there, the rabbi of Kilat Jeshurun, and he spent the entire day telling us just how much my grandfather meant to him. And so it's so special for me to be able to speak about him, and also to be able to share with all of you this afternoon, evening, with all of you who loved him so much.
Dina, thank you very much indeed.
Jimmy.
Hello, Margaret.
Hello. Can I say one thing about Uncle Julius? That it was so wonderful. Every year for Rosh Hashanah, he would come to London in the last few years of his life. And the most beautiful thing was to see, I used to walk my father down to Hampstead Way, where he would meet Uncle Henry and Uncle Julius. And the three brothers would walk down to Monk's Shul together. And I never saw them in shul, but I would greet them at 6 in the morning because monks have to start before anyone else. And it was so lovely. And many people in Monk's Shul say that was the loveliest thing to see. Uncle Henry couldn't see anymore. And between Uncle Julius and my father, they would all daven aloud, and there would be the three of them together. And that was a memory that I will always, always cherish, of the three brothers walking down to shul together. Okay, on we go.
That's a lovely thought. Thank you very much indeed. So, Dina, thank you very much.
Hi, hello, everyone. I
Who's-
have to say a quick statement. JPL was my favorite uncle. He caused me to marry my wife. He was the one who gave me the advice, and I named my 6th child after him. So I love you all. Just wanted to say that.
Good to see you, Mark. Good to see you, Mark, and thanks for sharing that with us. The next Yahrzeit in the list is Sam Eisenman. Sam Eisenman was married to Evelyn, who was the eldest child. Many of you may not have known him. He died, I don't remember how many years ago. My earliest recollection for him was very intimate when I was 8 days old, but we'll move on. And we're very fortunate that Tzipi Blechman is here in Yerushalayim, expecting a grandchild any moment. So, Tzipi, I'm moving on to you.
Hello, everyone. It's a zchus to be here in Yerushalayim. Love to see everybody, but I'm in Bidud, so it's not happening. So I'm going to bring up a pasuk that's in Shachris. It says, Elu dvarim sh'adam ochel, peruseim ba'olam hazeh v'akeren kayamis la'olam haba. So ever since my grandfather passed away, I have identified this pasuk with him, and also by extension my grandmother. I find that many of the Masim Tovim that are described here are very much something that he personified. So I'm just going to bring out a few of them. It mentions Gemilas Chasadim, so you'll all know that Chesed was a very big part of my grandparents' life, my grandfather. I'll give you a few examples. I know that on Sukkot, my grandfather wanted to have non-frum people experience what Sukkot was all about and to make a bracha in the sukkah. And he would bring hordes of men into the sukkah after shul, and my grandmother would give them something to eat. They would make a bracha and they would leave. As all of you also know, that Auntie Joan spent the war years with my grandparents, and I'm sure it was very difficult for everyone. It was hard for Auntie Joan being far away from her parents, and it was difficult, I'm sure, to have an older child, raising an older child while there were younger ones in the home. But I know that they were very good to her. They were very good to other refugees that passed through the town. Some of them lived with them for many years. It was difficult. Things were rationed. There wasn't a lot of money. They also helped Auntie Judy. I believe she came through after the war, doing social work, whatever you would call it, for the refugees. And she came into my grandparents' house and she said she needed clothing and she needed bedding. And my grandmother said that they just opened up the house and they took everything that was needed. A very big part of the chesed that my grandfather did was, of course, that he was a mile and he did very many bris milas. I think there's recorded over 6,000 bris milas that he did. Now, I don't know what happens in Eretz Yisrael, but in America, you have to pay for a bris. And these days, it's upwards of $700 to have a mile come to your house. Of course, if he needs to travel, that's an extra expense. And my grandfather never, ever charged. Now, a lot of that I'm repeating is things that I've heard over the years, but interestingly enough, as I've gone through life, I have met people that knew my grandparents. So a few years ago in Baltimore, I was driving a lady to a doctor's office, an old lady, and in the course of conversation, she said that she was in a DP camp outside of Basel. And she said she remembered that my grandfather would come into the DP camps, and it was known that they didn't have any money, that he wouldn't charge for the bris milas. Of course, part of this was also the chesed that he did was that he would go away very often from the family for Shabbos and Yantif, which I'm sure was difficult for everyone, but that was part of his mahalach. Also, it says, Hashkamas Beis HaMikdash Shachris V'Arvis. My grandfather was the consummate yakin. He was always on time. He was never in a rush. He would always be in shul. He was the Baal Tokeya. He was the Baal Musaf together on Yantif, which is a very unusual thing. Most people just do one or the other. And he would blow shofar for my grandmother, Chodesh Elul, and he loved it. And he loved everything about Yiddishkeit, which was beautiful to see. Then it says Bikur Cholim. So I know that they were very involved with it. I remember being with them in Basel, and Shabbos after shul, my grandparents went visiting. They went to the shut-ins, they went to sick people, and it was like quick, in, out. They said their good Shabbos, they said, how are you? But you could see that the people were so thrilled that they would come, and I learned things from them. I realized it's, just by doing something, you make someone else happy, and it doesn't have to be a long time, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. It's just doing what needs to be done. And there's a story with being Mevakar Cholim that we all know, is that my grandfather once went to visit someone in the hospital who was suffering from some digestive disorder, and he was kvetching to my grandfather that he didn't feel well. And my grandfather said, there's a very important bracha out there called Asher Yatzar. Do you say it? And he said to my grandfather, it's such a long bracha. And my grandfather said to him, rightfully so, it's not long enough. And it is a very special bracha. Everyone should know that it's a bracha with tremendous kaiches, and one should say it with kavana, standing up, not running around in place. And also my grandfather was very involved with Levias HaMeis. As you know, he was the head of the Chevra Kadisha for over 50 years. One story that we heard was that one night they came to my grandparents and said they hear that out at the Beis Olam, the Shomrim are not taking care of the mason properly. They're being disrespectful in some way. And my grandfather, just in the middle of the night, walked off to the Beis Olam and found that actually they were saying Tehillim and everything was as it should be. I will just mention one more short story that actually we experienced. Reb Moshe Aaron Stern, who was the Mashgiach in Kamenetz, used to come to Baltimore to collect and always was in our house. And somehow in the course of conversation, he found out that I was a granddaughter of the Eisenmans. And he said, you know, when I went collecting to your grandfather, first of all, my grandfather always gave everyone a schnapps, which was a big deal. You know, he was very welcoming. And he made a keen observation. When he gave me the donation, I put it into, I'm not sure if he told me his breast pocket or in some special wallet. And my grandfather said that that impressed him because so many of the Mishloachim that would come in would take the money and put it in their pants pocket where the other cash was, and that bothered him greatly. So these stories just exemplified for me the yashrus that my grandfather represented and also tried to pass on to all of us. I just want to end by saying I miss him very much. I have a lot of children, Baruch Hashem, that are named after family. We have a Sarah, a Dina, a Moshe, a Yaakov, and I think they, both him and my grandmother, would have enjoyed everyone, and I hope they're bringing them nachas in Yom HaEmes. That's it.
Sippy, Sippy,
Yes.
it's Margaret. Hi, Sippy,
Yes.
it's wonderful to
Hi,
see
Margaret.
you.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, I know you said all the wonderful things about your father, but your grandfather, but personal memories about how he was as a grandfather to his grandchildren, and not just about the community, but how he was to you.
He was I felt very spoiled. You know, I didn't really have much of them. They came very rarely, but I felt very blessed because I'm sure you noticed from your children and grandchildren, when I was growing up, no one had grandparents. And I always felt so blessed that I had a grandfather. You know, the yearbooks all said Mazel Tov from nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody. So he used to spoil us and I enjoyed it. He would pick me up at the airport in the train, take me home, show me how everything was punctual on the clocks at the trains. He was very proud of Basel. He would spoil us. You know, we grew up in New York. We had no family and I just felt so cherished. He would take us fishing. He would.
You see, it's so special to hear the special things about him. We know about his stockings and everything, but fishing, Uncle Samuel going fishing, that's news to me. Yeah, lovely.
We didn't like it, but he did.
Can I break in? We've got to move on. And if I could ask people, we'll have private chats afterwards and not during, otherwise people have, you know, whatever. So thank you very much, Sippy. It was marvelous hearing this. And we have very good memories of your grandfather. Particularly, I remember going to shul with him on every morning, and every person in the street seemed to know who he was. And I was a little boy of 10, and I felt very privileged. Let's move on, and we're going to move on now. עכשיו נעבור לעברית לחדווה, חדווה יחיאלי, בת של שי, לדבר על סבא נפתלי.
תודה, סימי. I'll try to mix some English and Hebrew. I have to say that I didn't know what to say this day, especially when this is the very date of Saba Yortzeit. And I searched for some Divrei Torah and Midrashim and tried to think of the right thing to say. And then, of course, the one who helped me is Safta John. Safta, we talked last Thursday on the phone, and I asked you, what do you think I should say on this minute we have to talk about Saba? And you helped me to choose a few things maybe you don't know what they are. So I picked 3 anecdotes about Saba. So the first thing, Safta, you asked me, think about like very strong memory you have about Saba. And there's the first image that came to my mind is the way Saba holds our hands, the grandchildren, great children. So when we walked, especially I remember when we walked home from Bet Knesset on Shabbat. So Saba held the hand in a way that no one else did. It was a very strong grip. Even sometimes it was hurt. It was so strong. I could feel the hand bones of my hand. It was really like something that says, I'm here, and it was warm and something that I can feel till this very days, and I miss it a lot. The second thing is to think about something from Saba's neshama, that's something that is very muchashi, that is very here, and I can feel very strongly about Saba that is still here. And Safta, you told me that these days you read at the Rabbi Steinsaltz's book Neshama, and it made me think about about something very strong from Saba, which is, I think, is Atzilut and Hadrat Kavod. I don't know how to translate it in the diuk. Maybe someone can help me. Maybe it's, I think that, okay, so I'll try to keep on. Saba had Atzilut and Hadrat Kavod. That is very special. I think many people felt it about it. There is something very interesting about it, because sometimes kavod, nobility and dignity. Thank you, Ami. So sometimes kavod is something that people is something to like, not something of ga'ava, and something that people want to take for themselves, and it's not something to praise someone with. But I think about Saba, it's something that was really pnimi about himself. It's something that was karan mimeno, mamash. It was pnimi and got outside of him. And it's something that even Saba is not here, I can really also feel it these days also. And something, another thing about it, that there is the Ami, as he wrote, nobility. I don't know how to say it in French. Atzilut mechayevet, noblesse oblige, right?
Noblesse oblige.
Noblesse oblige, right. So again, sometimes it's something that we are, the Israelis, maybe making laugh out of it, because like we don't have nobility in here. We call the Rosh Mamshala Bibi, right? So it's something we don't know. But when it comes to Saba, I think it doesn't something to laugh about at all. He was very acknowledged about his ichus in terms of kavod, and it makes his dignity to be something very pnimi and honorable. And the last thing, Safta, we talked about is Saba's connection to Mishpachat Lunzer, which is kind of a wonder when Saba is kind of an outsider, Galicianer, who came to this English family. And Safta, you said that he felt the warmth of this family, and we all know that it's something that Saba was very needed. And I think this is the time to say to you all, thank you for this.
Chedva kol hakavod. Thank you very, very much.
תודה, סבתא.
חדווה, תודה רבה מכולנו. האצילות והמלכות של סבא, של אנקל נפתלי. זה משהו שאנחנו זוכרים ולמדנו המון ממנו. Toda, Chedva. And now I'm going to go over to Joe Wyman, who's going to talk about his grandfather, Jack, and then we'll move on. Joe, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for organizing this, Timmy, Auntie Joan. Really wonderful event. And as any Lunzer, I couldn't help myself but to open my mouth and to say a few words. My mother's been egging me on as this is going on to try and comment on everybody. I said, my time will come, I will wait. accordingly, I'm still got some kind of manners here. So this is my moment, and no one more than my grandfather Jack would have enjoyed this this special event. In fact, he really had a special way of talking at family events, and I can now see it, the Hakol Kol Yaakov. I think of it, the way he spoke, but not just the way he would speak, but his delivery as well. He had this ability to make any occasion feel more grand or important. It would be the way that at an opportune moment, he would take off his glasses or even shed a tear or two, would make any family gathering feel that bit more special. He not only enjoyed getting up to speak at these moments, but sharing jokes, or more often than not, he would like to describe as how he would be pulling your leg. Whoever that may be, it was one might call him a wind-up merchant, actually. And thinking back now, it probably was fitting in his place in the family as the youngest son and the second younger sibling that he was sometimes a joker. The special time that many people here joined him and was in what they called the club. This was Erica and Aaron, Auntie Billy, still here, and Uncle Henry, Cocky, and my grandfather Jack. And there was various times there would be a few other old timers to join in at Fairport for Friday night dinner. Whoever joined them at this time knew that they were in for a special treat. The way these siblings still had their in-jokes and telling stories of Letchworth and Lordship Park, as if it was just yesterday, that's something to marvel on, and even to join in when we were allowed to say a few words and speak. Another favorite subject of these Friday night dinners, especially for Jack and Uncle Aaron, was Israeli politics. And I still look back now, Uncle Aaron, if anyone had forgotten that at this stage in his life, he was quite hard of hearing. And this meant that my grandfather would have to raise his voice and repeat the same thing a couple of times just to make sure that Uncle Aaron had heard his joke and wind up. And it was quite ironic, actually, and not something to be discussed at this point in time, but 25 years ago, they were arguing about Netanyahu. And my grandfather liked to call him Bibi Yahoo, and he would turn around to Aaron when there would be a quiet moment. And he would say, so Aaron, what's Bibi Yahoo been up to this week? And Aaron would turn around, who? Bibi Yahoo, he would shout at him. And it would always raise a funny moment in dinner. He had an amazing way with people, as walking in his disheveled old coat on Hampstead Heath, and he would tell passers-by that he was a groundsman and ask them for comment on the latest bedding on the heath or the flora and fauna. Or in the later years, he would call up Meadway cars in Golders Green, and he would shout down to the line there where 50 people would be answering, say, "It's Jack here, can you send a car, please?" And sure enough, within 10 minutes, there would be a car outside to take him to the office or to Shimon. In those days, those were really the only two places he would go, Shimon or the office. Over the years, my grandfather enjoyed a few key things in life. People, of course, he loved having people in his house and around him. But most importantly, he liked to be the center of attention. And he usually was. It wasn't the center of attention, then of course his books needed to be. Growing up as a child and going to Fairport regularly and took his books and the smell of the books completely for granted. They were just there like he was there. The books and Papa were synonymous with each other. We would sit in the lounge, his study or Chatterley, and he would be fully immersed in the books and think nothing of it. The relevance of them and how they were acquired were not really of interest to me as a young child or even as a teenager or a younger adult. The fact that at Seder night he would pull out his Prague Haggadah and I would peer over and look at this old book and look at my slightly eccentric grandfather and look at the books again and just, I would took it completely for granted. And it really all came to life in 2009 when Sotheby's organized an amazing exhibition in New York. And some of you were there. I remember seeing your faces. And most of you have seen the pictures, and they filled the floor in their Upper East Side auction house with the books laid out side to side. And never ever seen, as we saw, they were lined up in Fairport, that we knew them. The sheer scale of collecting the number of books in a lifetime was awesome in itself. But seeing him come alive in these later years of his life, reveling in other people's interest, and the crowds of people queuing around the corner in the cold New York was quite amazing. And he knew at this point that his life's work was completed. Above all else, above everything else, he was proud of his heritage, his Lunzer family name. He would often quote the Pasuk in Koheles, Tov Shem and Mishem and Tov. And it wasn't that he was worried about what other people would think or keeping up with others, but he felt obliged to do correct and honorable things, and honorable in his dealings, in his professional life, in his work, and in his family life, his heritage, his tradition, his Lunzer customs, making sure that we sang the right tune for Shir HaMalos out of tune, which I try and instill that in my children. And he wanted to say what was important to him to pass to us and to the next generation. I too hope to pass at least the idea of these out of tune for Yom Tov Shir HaMalos and hallelujah to my next generation, and hope one day they can come together in a forest or on Zoom or in any other way that they can reminisce about us too. And may their Yeh Zichron Baruch, and thank you again for giving me this opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you, Joe. We all have such fond memories. And before I finish, I want to ask, just make the point, there are 61 people on this Zoom, all family, all very connected with each other. And it's not something which should be taken for granted or taken lightly. I think it's a very special experience that we have together. very much, עכשיו אני מבקש מהרב בני לשאת דברים ולסיים הערב. Benny, Rav Benny, I'm very much grateful if you could say a few words.
Thank you, Timmy. And I should say it's not 60 people, it's 60 screens, maybe around 100 people, and it's unbelievable. So tonight it's the Yortzeit. As Chedva said, we all family here in the Lau family, we know clearly that Abba felt when he found the Lunzer's family, that he found a home. I think that we all agree that he looked after a family that survived complete after the war. It was something unusual to see in Europe family with the 8 branches all around the parents. And I think that was the first step that Abba did to collect himself to that family. And as Chedva said, for us, it's not just thanks, it's understanding that we are part of a very deep family with the roots of the Eisenmans and Lunzer family. When Ima came to Israel, so Savta Celine said to her, when it was quite hard for her, Savta said, you know, you are now starting a new tree. It will take time until you will find your roots. Now I'm looking around with so many branches in Israel, and I know that it's happened. It's just about 65 years later, and I feel exciting to look around. During that hour, we chat with our kids, explain them all names, who are related to whom, and it's not obvious that we can collect ourselves like that. I should say that using one pasuk from our parasha, כי במקלי עברתי את הירדן הזה, ואתה הייתי לי שני מחנות. Yaakov said when he returned back after 20 years, returned back home. We know the history, especially tonight when we are keep the memory of Abba 6 years later after he passed away. We can say that pasuk clearly. ממקלי עברתי את הירדן הזה, ואתה הייתי לי שני מחנות. So I want to thank all of you. תודה רבה, Timmy, to organize all that. And I think that the simple way to finish that hour is by Hinelo Yanum. I think that so many babies around the world know the tune, the same tune. It's generations who grew up with that. We can slap each other with the Hinelo Yanum. So I'm not the one who can lead the Shira around, but Timmy, you are great with that. So
Maybe
let's end with, you can use the Yigdal, but I prefer Hinelo Yanum.
Beseder. Josh, can you put us all on off mute?
Yep, how do I do that?
Yeah, can you, everybody off mute? Everybody ready?
Everybody should just take themselves off.
Take themselves.
Everybody unmute themselves.
Yes. Where's Mommy to lead us into Hinelo Yanum?
Tops, can you lead us, please, with a key?
Good night. Sleep tight.
Now, please, we've got plenty of time. Those who want to schmooze with each other, please do so.
Can I just say, I
Margaret.
want to speak to Mook. I want to speak to Mook.
Speak to Mook, he's my brother.
Okay, you speak first. I just wanted to say Baruch Rofei Cholim. I know that he's got a
Can
long
someone
way to
sing
go.
the Ha-Ha bracha that Uncle Peter always sang without shame malchus? That's a Lunzer bracha.
Wild.
That's
Do you know it? Benji?
Maybe next time, Timmy, you have the cups out on display. Maybe that's what. Next time you should have the cups out on display.
Absolutely. I don't know where they are. They're in America, actually. They're in Benji, I think. You got them, right?
Timmy, may I say something, please?
Joan, please.
There are some of my siblings that didn't come on to this, and that is Evelyn and Henry.
Timmy?
Unmute.
Oh, Joan's gone on to...
Wait 1 second. Oh, sorry.
Muted. No, we can't hear her.
Wait. Anytime. Oh, sorry.
Josh, you just go onto her picture, onto her screen, on the 3 buttons there, you can unmute her there.
Gotcha.
Tell Joan to start again. We missed her.
Sorry. Next time Tim does this.
Josh, go back to the children's table.
There, yeah. Now, Joan.
Did you hear what I said?
No.
There are
No.
and the children and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren who were not mentioned tonight. So maybe we will, Yom Ha'atzmaut, you have Thanksgiving Day, we have Yom Ha'atzmaut. I think we'll get together and see to give, just give attention to the other four who were not
Can
mentioned.
everyone hear me?
And sing happy birthday to Amichai.
Nachon, absolutely. And thank you, everybody. It's been wonderful.
Well, thank you, Joan. Joan, it was
Can
your
everyone
idea.
hear me?
Joan,
Okay,
it was,
but
Joan,
ideas come and ideas go.
Joan, it was your idea, and you pushed us into doing it. So thank you, Joan.
Good. So we'll continue meeting each other besmachot.
So
Now
do-
we've seen all the faces. We'll
Right,
do
everybody now can unmute and chat with each other.
Good luck with that.
I have a story about Uncle Sam. Can I tell it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. He was Eliav's moel. Eliav, can you see Eliav? All of you? Baruch Rofei Cholim Be'emet. So his bris was, Eliav's bris was in Heath House, and everybody was waiting for the mall to come downstairs and do the Mila. And Uncle Sam was upstairs, and he had a watch next to him, and he scrubbed up for 5 minutes on the watch. For 5 minutes, he scrubbed. Okay. Meanwhile, downstairs, they're all waiting.
So feel see.
Rav Feldman said, where's the mole? Where's the mole? Where's the mole? Where's the mole? And late Ramsey Homer said,
Hold on, Mommy, 1 second. Can everybody put it on mute? Because there's somebody with a noise in the background.
Are there
Sorry.
pictures from the Brit?
yes, somewhere or other. Benji, you were
Excellent.
there. Ben, you were at the bris. I don't know where the thing is, but anyway. And so the late Ramsey Homer.
Not the late.
Alive. He's alive, Topsy.
Oh, sorry, it's the late Paul.
He was alive this morning.
Sorry. So his answer to where's the mole, he says, he's upstairs practicing on a carrot.
Okay.
Very useful.
Mommy, thank you for sharing that with everybody. But this definitely goes back to the beginning, perhaps, of Timmy talking about Uncle Sam. This being also my first encounter with him.
Yes.
There's something I wanted to say about our grandmother, Celine, Oma Celine, which I think Joan told me, and that's on their 50th wedding anniversary. And I think this applies to our family and all our spouses. On her 50th wedding anniversary, she was interviewed by the Jewish paper in London, because she was quite a celebrity and a very well-known figure in the London Jewish community. And the journalist asked, Mrs. Lunzer, have you ever considered divorce? And she said, divorce, never. Murder, often. Right? Not me, את יודעת את הסיפור הזה.
אני בטח. I also want to say something. I think about it almost daily. That is when Joan, you went with Granny to the Kotel in her later years, and you told me that Granny said at the Kotel, I have only to thank. And I think of this so often, and I identify, and I find that is something so wonderful to say and to be able to say in your late years, even though she went through a lot of hardship also. But what she felt was that she has only to thank. And I think that is so wonderful.
Yeah.
Naomi, you are so right. And I spoke to Topsy about it. And she said that her memories of my mother are that she was very stoic. She didn't look back on what was, but she looked forward she had a wonderful laugh. Her double chins always laughed with her, and she accepted the fact that she was living, and she was wonderful to everybody. The house was full of girls who come to England and were accepted like daughters. And we really, I don't think I ever asked her enough questions. That happens so often. You think about it and then you say, why didn't I ask Mother about this? The one thing I do know is that she was stoic. Her therapy was needlework. It was really therapy. And the zugiyot, the couple, my parents, was such a wonderful example of what is zugiyot in English?
Coupledom.
Couples, no.
Marriage.
Well, togetherness. Togetherness. They went through very difficult times, but they did it together. And that as a child, I do remember, and that really is the organ that I spoke about at the beginning. The root was that there was authenticity and that the religion also, it wasn't just that. It was really, truly in them, both of them together. And it was Hachnasat Orachim, and it was everything else that belonged to the living Jewish life. Both
And
of
music. And music, Joan.
And music, yes. Music was very important.
Can I take the funny memory of my grandma?
Can everybody hear me?
I'd like
Yes, Esther.
It's Esther from New York. I just want to say this has been unbelievable, and we should do it very, very soon again. And Baruch Hashem, we have the schus to have my father here. I didn't know I would be able to say this, but Baruch Hashem, he's home, and it's a wonderful thing. And it's just amazing how we have cuckoo Lunzers all over the world, and we're all the same. And I may have Esrim, and we should do this soon again, not just for Yartzites, but for Simchas. And it's a schus to be here. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Esther.
Can I quickly tell you a funny story about Granny? Because I called Granny every morning when I was very young married. And once I called, or not once, a few times I asked Granny for a recipe. And let me tell you, I loved her dearly, but she always let out one ingredient.
She was a terrible cook. Why would you have asked her for a recipe?
I needed to ask somebody. I needed Granny. She was my granny.
She was our granny. She was our wonderful granny.
Very great.
You're on mute. Margaret, you're on mute.
Okay, so I remember the story about Granny, or Oma as we called her. In their first years of marriage, Opa never came home on time for dinner. And she couldn't understand where he was always going. So one evening, she decided she was going to ask her mother-in-law. So she goes over to Fanny Lunzer and to ask her, and who does she see sitting there having the most glorious dinner but her husband? So he obviously preferred his mother's cooking. So
her husband and all his brothers. That's how
really?
I heard this.
Really?
Yes, they were all sitting there.
And the story about Uncle Sam is that in Auntie Evelyn's later years, somebody came up to her. Somebody came up to Auntie Evelyn and said, "Your husband was my Moel." So she said, "Shall I check?" So he had a bit of a shock.
I would never say that. My mother would never say that.
I heard it. No, don't take it so bad. Who is that with it looks like wearing a burqa? Who is that? Oh, that's Esther. And so
I'm on the street. I'm sorry.
She meant in the Moel book.
Right.
Oh, that's not what you said.
Yeah, she said, I check the book.
The book.
Hey, Margaret.
Excuse me, can everybody see our grandson, please?
Yes.
Our kid there, marvelous. Very sweet.
This is
Florida. Of grandchildren, can I say a word of Hakarat Tov?
Yes.
Our grandson Adin Yuda was born 3 months ago in Yerushalayim to our new Olim, Matthew and Yael. We haven't met him yet, and we don't know when we're going to meet him. But because we have the most wonderful family, Timmy and Naomi welcomed him, and Timmy was his sandik. And the first trip that the baby took was to go and see Aunt Joan. Caroline made sure that he had everything that he needed. And Sippy went to go visit her grandchildren. She called first to see what our baby needed. So imagine what our grandparents would have thought and how proud they'd be of all of you and how grateful we are that here we have this baby born in Yerushalayim being taken care of by his whole family.
Oh,
very nice. Very nice.
Good to see you too.
Beautiful.
This is
We hope to see you all.
Timmy.
Hello.
Timmy.
Yes.
Timmy. This is Vivian in Florida.
Yes, Vivian.
I would like to make 2 observations and then say something. Observation number 1, Auntie Joan, the Sheva Brochus of my late in-laws, Evelyn and Samuel, was not in 1937. They were married in 1935.
Oh, sorry.
36.
It was a very long celebration.
As all the Lander celebrations are.
I hope the second comment I would like to make is, as many of you know, Margaret made the shidduch of Mook and me, Mook and myself.
Hi, Margaret.
55 years ago.
And I must tell you, Vivian, I must tell you something. I phoned Mook.
Everybody was discussing me and this and that. Uncle Jack said, okay, here's the champagne, here's the salmon, we're done. Mazel tov, Vivian Mook, you're getting married. And Margaret was the maid of honor.
I wish you could smile.
Listen, I must, this is something, I called Mook to hospital one day and I said to the nurse, please tell Mr. Eisman that's his favorite cousin on the phone. So Mook comes to the phone and he says, hi, Tops. So I know my place. I know my place, Tops.
Okay. I would like to just thank all of you from the Abba Comfort Haaretz for having davened for Mook and thought of Mook and called Mook, even though you usually didn't get through, and helped me and given us his look to get the worst. And now Baruch Hashem, he's in his home in Florida and just benched Donald yesterday, thanks to Mark.
Amen.
Outside on the lawn.
Wonderful,
I wish
wonderful.
you a good Hanukkah Sameach, and we should meet in Smachot. You're all welcome to New York, to Florida, and one day to London and Yerushalayim.
Vivian and Mook, if you're talking about for Alba Comfort Haaretz and all the way around the world, it's Ruth Wyman here, Mira's daughter. I don't know if you remember, but you took me out to eat many a lovely meal in Sydney, Australia when I was living there. And it's lovely to see you looking well and smiling behind that mask, I know. And I'm sending lots of love for your speedy recovery and sending lots of thanks for looking after me when I was way away from family and family members, and seeing you in Australia was a nice slice of home for me as well, family. So thank you.
Ruth,
and
happy birthday.
lots of love.
Ruth, happy birthday.
Have I?
Ruth, you're being said happy birthday by Mim.
Hello.
Happy birthday.
And
Thank you.
I've got
Hi,
one
Mim.
funny Eisenman story. When I got engaged to Bino, the first thing my father said to his father, because his father was Swiss, was to find out who his moil was. And his moil wasn't Uncle Sam, but Uncle Sam's father.
Wow.
That's how connected our families were.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is something.
Without checking. Mira, without checking.
Without checking, it came straight out just like that. And then, to be fair, Uncle Sam was a little bit old, but really wanted to do Joe's Brit, but didn't do it. That caused, when Joe was born, it caused a lot of ripples in the family.
Without checking.
Yes.
This is the new Lunzer motto, without checking.
Yes.
I'm sorry to jump in, but we have someone who wants to say hi who is hopefully going to speak soon.
Oh, the baby.
Let's see.
No checking.
Hi.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's
Give everyone a kiss.
Lagi shalom.
Hiya.
Lagi laila tov.
I hope so.
He's crying.
I'm going to let you all just carry on chatting. If you want to leave, please leave. You want to carry on schmoozing, please schmooze. I'm not closing this down till you've all had enough.
Can